everybody. Welcome to this episode of Elements to Elevate by 180 Elevate. Each month, we laser focus and dig deeper into an area of leadership, which we truly believe is an element to uplift our perspectives and humanity. From insights to action, the path to elevate your mind, body, and soul starts here. In today's episode, we have Sharon Hoffman. Sharon is a seasoned production executive with more than 20 years of experience in network news, syndication, and late-night media. Currently, she is the executive producer for Tonal, overseeing the fitness tech company's new creative content production team. Welcome, Sharon.
Hello. So nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on our show. And
Sure.
love what you're doing with Tonal and combining media with fitness. God, that's amazing. So media provides excitement both on and off screen. Our audience would love to hear about your key learnings and takeaways on your journey.
How far back would you like me to go?
It's your stage.
Had a rather long
Whatever
career.
you want to share.
I started the bulk of my career was in broadcast news, television news, and I got into that field because I felt like it was a way that I could really make a difference and educate people. I was very idealistic about it. I wanted to educate people about the choices that they make, just how they spend their money, how they vote, how they educate their children, how they, sort of come through life, understand major news events around the world. I had also seen a lot of formative movies like Broadcast News and The Year of Living Dangerously and All the President's Men. I had big dreams of becoming a big newspaper reporter initially, and then I wound up writing an article early in my career about the man who was then running the Today Show, the morning television program, and I spent a morning in the control room with him, and it changed everything for me. I thought it was exhilarating. I thought it was live television was like nothing I had ever experienced, and I just knew that was what I wanted to do. So I found my way in. I started as a producer for Dateline NBC, which is a long-form news magazine program, and actually was thinking about that quite a lot this weekend because I covered 9/11 among the various major news events that I covered, which was now 20 years ago. And I remember that day incredibly intensely. So I rose through the ranks in a management perspective. I started to lead teams and then shows. And I did that most recently at CBS News, where I ran the weekend news group, and that involved overseeing special events and also the Saturday and Sunday editions of the CBS Evening News. And quite a lot of news happens on the weekend, actually. And so I remember being on set the day of Tony Scalia, the former Supreme Court justice, passed away, and that was a huge news day, and so we were on the air for hours. I felt I've had a very fortunate career. It taught me one thing that being a leader in a live control room will teach you is being decisive. You don't have time you don't have time to wobble. And that it's better if you're right more often than you're not, but you don't have time to be right every time. And so you make the best judgment call in the moment that you can. And one of the reasons that I was successful at it is that I was able to do it calmly as well. I think that maybe sometimes I happen to be a parent of two now grown young men, but they were
Boys.
boys at the time, and it just teaches you a lot of, it taught me a lot of patience. So you believe in your team, and but something about when things get very intense, I get very calm, and so that is a good temperament for being in live breaking news television. You tend to find out very quickly if you're meant for it or not, because in those circumstances, if it's not for you, you find yourself feeling like you want to throw up, and
Yeah,
because the
yeah.
pressure
No,
is
it's
so
so right.
intense.
Yeah.
So that was news, and since then I've had a couple of pivots, and here I am.
Yeah, what you said about being calm in the middle of the chaos and the storm is truly a gift. And I guess the more decisions you make, the more you go ahead in your career, you
Hmm.
realize there's no good or bad decision. You just either learn from it or you're like, okay, we nailed it and move on. So,
Absolutely. One of the
so
things that we always like saying is that in daily news in particular is that there's always tomorrow.
yes,
You always have a tomorrow, and so it's very redemptive. If you strive for perfect in the morning, get as close as you can by the evening, and you come back again.
yeah, perfection sometimes does not work, and then we stay in that fear category, and you need to grow and no decisions, like I said, you make, it evolves.
Yes,
So, on that note, what does personal transformation mean to you?
such an interesting question. For me, most recently, what it meant was uh, exploring whether I could bring the skills that I've developed over the course of my career to a whole new sector. A lot of times, people who are in what's become known as legacy media are thought not to be adaptable enough to join tech companies or to change careers. And I was in that world for a very long time. I wanted to prove um, to myself that had um, I had another few chapters ahead of me, you know? So I happen to be incredibly passionate about fitness, not because I'm some manic Barry's,
Fitness guru.
class attender or anything. I like what fitness and being active affords me the opportunity to do. I tend to take adventuresome vacations. My most recent one, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. So
Beautiful.
um, it enables me to live life and have the kind of experiences that I want to have. And in a funny way, I feel I started to realize, especially during the pandemic, I know we've all had our moment of a gut check about what do I want to be doing with my time? Who do I want to be spending my time with? Life is very precious. Um, you can have your freedom in the sense of your ability to walk around without fear of becoming ill or infecting other people. You can have that taken away from you in a moment, as we all have learned around the world. And so um, time becomes very precious. And I had not been feeling enough of late that I was contributing something. And so what I was saying is that in a strange way, I feel like I'm contributing something now in terms of helping to shape a part of this technology. Um, the storytelling piece of it, we create workout programming for tonal. It's hard to explain if you don't have one. I should have maybe gone in the other room where I do have one,
I checked the
but
website, looks fabulous. I can't wait to try it someday
it's
soon.
a technological marvel, and it is basically an extraordinary feat of engineering. It attaches to a wall. It has articulated arms that come out of it, and it is a strength training system. It uses artificial intelligence to read your strength. The arms can move in all sorts of positions, and there's a very big monitor on the front. It's vertical, and it there is workout programming that you work out along with. Um, and it is I oversee the production of that programming, and so
Got it.
in my little way, where I feel like I'm helping people live healthier, get stronger. We have a slogan. You see the hashtag around in social media: "Be your strongest," and that means
Yeah,
something different to every person who uses it. And I kind of
totally.
love that.
Yeah, and your background with media made you the perfect storyteller for it because we relate to stories more than anything
Mhm.
else. And at Tonal, you're on a mission to make the world a healthier, happier place. So, what does mind, body, soul integration mean to you in that aspect?
Well, I think that if we're doing our jobs right, when you are in the experience of working out on tonal, you leave. Well, you either leave yourself or you go deep within yourself. Um, I feel like we're being successful if you are hearing words of motivation and inspiration, and it is helping you transform to get outside of the sometimes we give ourselves negative feedback loops.
Yeah,
Sometimes there's so much anxiety that we have in these times. We analyze, overanalyze sometimes everything we say, and so if you can get to a place um, in your world for a half hour, an hour a day, where you're very focused on your breathing, on being strong, on trying to achieve goals, on sweating, on, it sounds, I hope not too frivolous. I mean, it's really can be an uplifting experience. And that's what we're going for, is to
totally.
feel like, wow, I really got something out of that. I loved uh, exercising. I loved that coach. I laughed. I sweated a lot. I want to come back again tomorrow. And so then we've done our job because you are connected with that feeling of uh, being connected to your soul. I think it's not,
Totally.
I'm not saying anything unique if I say that there's a tremendous amount of research to back up that it is very good for mental health, to be
Totally.
exercising regularly. And so all of the companies like Peloton, like Tempo, Mirror, Form, there are quite a few of them now. And all of them ultimately have that goal, which is um, to help you
Get out of
achieve
your head.
what we should all be doing: get out of your head and also get up out of your chair. Because a lot of it, we do that way too much now, between everything you can stream on television for days and days and days, and just working on Zoom all the time. It's not great for us. So,
Totally, and it gives the flexibility because you have, time wise, it's pretty efficient as well.
mhm.
So, if you were free to speak your mind without fear of judgment, what would you want the world to know?
Are we ever free to speak our mind without judgment? I'm not
We can
sure.
try.
In 2021 in the United States of America, that is a tough road to follow.
Or a piece of advice for anyone kind of wanting to get into the media world today, because it's a
Mm,
scary space also.
it is, and I will confess that when I left news, I left it feeling a little burned out on what it had evolved into. It's a business like any other. Not There are some nonprofit news organizations, but most of them are for profit. And in order to succeed in what's become called the attention economy, you have to serve up what people want to see instead
Yeah.
of perhaps what they need to see. Um, and even the definition of what they need to see has been called, I think, rightly into question by um, people in various groups who feel underrepresented, unrepresented in media images. and very frustrated at the dynamic that that creates and the inequality that that creates. And I could not be more sympathetic to that. And I think that
Totally.
there is a lot of learning that the entire profession did, or certainly should have been doing, in the last, especially several years. But that said, the polarized nature of politics, the way that the media generally was undermined in this country during the Trump administration. Not everyone would be happy that I say that, but I experienced it from the inside, and I can tell you, it made uh, I have worked over the course of my career with some very people with the highest standards who were coming into work every day wanting to get it right,
Yeah.
to really find out answers on behalf of the people that we represent, which is our audience. And were being booed. I had were hissed at, being thought of as the enemy, and that's pretty tough to take. I'm not saying it wasn't earned in places, but it certainly made it difficult to uh, go forward. And I guess, what would I say without judgment? Be careful what you wish for, is what I
Yeah.
would say, because I don't think a country which does not have a powerful, varied, and supported press is one that, in the long run, any of us really wants to live in. It has its flaws, like all
Mm-hmm.
organizations do, like all professions do. It's easy to pick apart. I think social media has been had a pretty profound effect
Impact.
on public discourse. Some for the better, some markedly not for the better, but uh, I don't I don't think we want in uh, to be living in a place where people are scared to find out answers, to have healthy argument, to um, I think that we are headed for a potentially very dangerous place. And I say that aside from whatever politics
Mm-hmm.
anyone one follows. It is just, unfortunately, uh, it may take the absence of what we have had for a very long time for people to appreciate it. I hope it doesn't come to that.
True, and there's so much information out there that's sometimes hard for me to navigate. There's so many
Mm,
different medias. Everyone has a different opinion, so you got to take a step back. And I would say, like,
definitely.
get into your fitness, get into your body, and you do you. Go back into your mind, body, soul, I guess. So if
It
you
is
would,
overwhelming, the amount of
yes,
information, by the way. It is. I don't know how anybody sorts through it anymore. And a lot of people don't sort through it. They opt out. And I fully understand why. Um,
I, I personally do the same, and you just go back, and that's where fitness is so important nowadays, because you got to
mhm.
go back to your body and say, how do I feel? We can't
Yes.
judge, we can't
Yes.
make opinions because we don't know all the information. It's all filtered. So if you were to write an opening line to the theme tune of your life, what would it be?
Ah, gosh, I'm not sure. I always sing in the car. I
You should
don't. I don't.
just breathe.
Um, you know, I I would, I suppose,
Or what's your favorite coat?
my favorite coat,
Coat, yeah.
like coat that I put on coat.
No, you're saying, like, what's your favorite coat? Like a slogan.
Oh, code. I apologize. I often, when I was asked a question like that, I would, there's a book about baseball that was made into a movie with Robert Redford and Glenn Close. It was called The Natural, and it was about an older baseball player who was going back. He was the best that ever was, and he got derailed from what was supposed to have been a very promising career. And there's a line at one point where um, where Glenn Close says something to, I'll mangle it, but something to the effect of, there's the life that you learn with, and there's the life that you live with after that. And I've always loved that, and I feel like I'm very much in the life I'm living with after that, and it is I've learned a lot along the way, and I'm feeling very privileged and wonderful that I get to do that.
True.
And so I suppose I'd pick that.
That's great. We had Bruce Lipton last month in our show, and he said, I've lived two lives. The first 50 years of my life, where I made all the mistakes, I learned everything, and now I'm really living. So,
Well, there must be something to that sentiment, because here it is coming up again.
yes.
But yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
True. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, and I appreciate your time and your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
You too.
Hi there, I'm Carol Robin, and I'm delighted to once more support 180 Elevate's mission to help people learn to connect and grow. And in this short masterclass, I'll be talking about a crucial element of building strong, functional relationships, which is the ability to give and receive feedback. Relationships exist on a continuum. At one end of the continuum, we have contact with no real connection, or sometimes just dysfunction. And at the other end of the continuum, we have something we might call exceptional. Now, nobody's advocating you try to turn all of your relationships into something exceptional. However, along the way, in developing the skills to move along this continuum, we also develop the ability to create more robust, strong, functional relationships. And I believe it behooves us all to learn how to move along that continuum. In business especially, people do business with people. And in general, learning how to create and develop more functional, robust relationships is a determinant of both professional and personal success. Now, among the characteristics of relationships that have moved successfully along this continuum is that you can both be honest with each other, and you learn to resolve conflict productively, and you are invested in each other's learning and growth. And you've learned how to give and receive feedback in ways that don't weaken, but rather strengthen the relationship. Certainly, if we're invested in each other's growth, we need to be willing to engage in feedback conversations. Only you know how effective I am in the way that I interact with you and that I show up in the world. And yet, feedback conversations are quite rare. Why is that? Well, that's because we hold these mental models, these beliefs and assumptions about what will happen when we give somebody feedback, because we've all stepped in a pile of doo-doo one time or another, when in fact we tried to give feedback, or we were on the receiving end or on the witnessing end. So what happens is we develop these mental models and then we don't test them. So let me give you an example. Many years ago, when my son was going away to college, this would be many years ago, he's now 34, his dad was going to take him back to the East Coast to look at colleges. And my son at the time, 16 and a half, came in my kitchen and said, Mom, don't send me with Daddy on this. I can't go with Daddy on this trip. And I said, geez, Nick, what's that about? And he said, it's just going to be bad. We're going to have a lot of fights, and you need to find a way to take me. And I said, that just doesn't work with my teaching schedule and your vacation, your spring break, so I'm sorry. You either go with your dad or you don't go, but what's going on? He said, oh, Mom, you know Dad. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He's going to be at the front of every tour, and he's going to ask a million questions. And all the other kids are going to say, oh, my God, that poor kid, that's his dad. I'm going to be so embarrassed. Please don't send me with him. And I said, gee, Nick, it sounds like you've got feedback for your father. Now, those of you watching or listening might have teenage kids and recognize the teenage eye roll, but after I got the teenage eye roll, Nick said to me, Mom, can you imagine how much that'll hurt his feelings? And I said, well, what do you think will hurt his feelings more? For you not to tell him and for you to find some end run around, or for you to give him an opportunity to figure out whether there's a way you can go and have it work for both of you? So that night at dinner, actually as we were finishing dinner, I had already cleared the dishes, was in the kitchen, and I hear Nick say, actually, no, before that, in the kitchen, earlier, he still said to me, hey, can you tell him? And I said, no, that's not how feedback works. So then fast forward to that evening, and he goes ahead and he's still sitting at the table with my husband, Andy, and he says, hey, Dad, Mom says I have to tell you this. Well, whatever way you have to get into it, it's fine. And then he says, Mom, will you come sit next to me? And if you need a little moral support, that's also fine. And so he says to Andy, Mom says I have to tell you this. I really don't want to go on this trip. I'm really, it's going to drive me nuts. You're going to have a million questions. I'm going to be embarrassed. Now, my husband, having been married to me by then for quite a while, and knowing that one of the most fundamental elements of building better, stronger relationships is the ability to receive feedback in addition to give it, looked at Nick and said, wow, Nick, thanks. Thanks for telling me that. I bet it was hard, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you thinking enough of our relationship and caring enough to tell me. What shall we do about it? Now, the purpose of feedback is not to change somebody. The purpose of feedback is to move into a problem-solving conversation when it's constructive feedback. I'll come back to that in a moment. But to move into a problem-solving conversation, what shall we do about it? And so what they decided was that they would go and park at a specific spot, agree to meet back there at a specific time, and they could both go their separate ways when they got to a college campus. And they might join the same tour or a different tour. Nobody would know they were related. Andy could still be at the front of the line, the Energizer Bunny, asking a million questions. Nick could walk away if he wanted to, be in the back. And the other thing they agreed to do was that when they got back to the car, Andy would wait until our son Nick was ready to talk about this campus versus that. And they did go. And they had a fabulous time, and it completely changed their relationship. And the bookend to that story is that many years later, our son did, in fact, go east, and many years later, he came back west to go to a well-known business school in Palo Alto, California. And at that point, he called Andy and said, hey, Dad, how about a road trip across the country while I bring all my stuff home? So the next time you're afraid to give somebody feedback, remember Nick and Andy, and remember what happened to their relationship as a result. If there is nothing else you remember from this short masterclass, it's that we need to change our mental models about feedback to seeing it as a gift. Always a gift. It's always data. I'm better off knowing than not knowing. And, in fact, sometimes it's wrapped in a very strange looking wrapping. Sometimes it's hard to know it's a gift. But it's data. And more data is always better than none. Now, it turns out that it's a little easier to shift our mental model about feedback when we get a little more skilled at it, because most people don't know how to do it well. And in order to do it well, the most important thing to remember is that in any exchange between two people, there are actually three realities. There's what's going on for this gentleman. There's whatever he does. That's reality number 2, his behavior, what he does and what he doesn't do. And there's the impact that has on this woman. And that's reality number 3. And at any point in time, one of them only has access to 2 of those realities. He knows what he intends and what he's done, and she knows what the impact was of what he did and what he did. Reality number 2 is the only one known to both of them. Now imagine a metaphorical net that exists between his reality and his behavior, and how important it is to learn which side of the net you're on in giving feedback. Let me give you a very quick example. Now we're going to go back a lot of years to when my husband Andy was a big-time executive in the Valley. He would come home from the office exhausted. He would lie down on the couch, pick up the newspaper, because in those days we still read the newspaper. I was home with a 2-year-old and an infant. And I would hear him, and I'd come around, zooming around from the back of the house and say, oh my God, you're home. Thank God you're home. You can't believe what happened today. I went to that new nursery school, didn't even open yet. It's already full. Oh my God, why are we living in Palo Alto? Nya, 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 nya. And at that point, he would, while reading his newspaper, say, mm-hmm. Now, that's reality number 2. I'm speaking, he's making no eye contact, and I'm not getting much response other than a mm-hmm. Now, what happens in a situation like that is that I have a tendency to want to give him feedback, and what I do is I do something that's called being over the net. Instead of saying, honey, when I speak and you don't listen and you make no eye contact, by the way, reality 2 and 3, those are my realities that I know, I don't feel heard. And when I don't feel heard, I feel sad and distanced. Instead, what I say is, you're not listening. You're not listening is over the net. It's in his reality. I don't know. I'm not in his head. I don't know whether he's listening or not. And in fact, then he says, yeah, I'm listening. You're all worked up. And then I get even more irate. And I say, how can you not care? Or I feel that you don't care, which is not feedback. It's imputing a motive, unless he said, I don't care. Or how can you be so insensitive? Not feedback. The minute you make attributions and you assign motives, you are going to make the other person more defensive and less likely to want to move into a problem-solving conversation. So it wasn't until I learned to say, I don't feel heard, and when I don't feel heard, I feel distance, and I can't be there for you in the way that I want to be, that he was ready to listen to me. And it was at that point that he said, well, if you want my undivided attention, then you got to give me some time to unwind. And then we realized that he needed more time to unwind than I wanted to give him. I needed his undivided attention sooner than he wanted, and we settled on something that worked for both of us. Again, the purpose of feedback is to move into a problem-solving conversation. And again, if you remember nothing else from this short masterclass, remember the guideline. When you make no eye contact and only grunt in response to me when I'm speaking to you, that's behavior, I feel dismissed, sad, distanced. Not when you don't make eye contact, when you don't listen to me, which he is. I feel that you don't care. I feel like you're insensitive. Those are not feeling words, and they're over the net. Almost guaranteed to be over the net. When you start a sentence with I feel that or I feel like, it's grammatically impossible to follow the that or the like with an actual feeling word, which is why a vocabulary of feelings is included in the syllabus of the course that I once taught at Stanford and in the book we have written. And also, remember to include your intent in raising it. I'm telling you this because I hope the outcome of our conversation will be. So here's a little something to try with what you've just listened to if you want to experiment. Do you have constructive feedback for somebody and feel a bit unsure on how to give it? What is the behavior that bothers you? How does it make you feel? And what are some of your concerns in raising it? And if you think, it's not worth it, try substituting the pronoun it for I, you, or we. And then ask yourself again whether it's not worth raising. To learn more about my work and me, check out my recently published book, Connect, Building Exceptional Relationships with Family, Friends, and Colleagues, based on a legendary course that my co-author and I taught at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, one of the most popular electives there. Or go to our book website entitled connectandrelate.com, where you'll find downloadable free assessments and activities. You can also find out more about the programs offered through the nonprofit that I founded called Leaders in Tech at leadersintech.org. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us today and elevating yourself. Charity should begin at home, but should not stay there. At 180 Elevate, it is our honor to support local and global philanthropies which make an impact on the lives of our beautiful children and the world in of itself.
What would this world look like if we all felt cared for? Let's co-create that new paradigm. If you would like to consider joining our philanthropic mission, please consider donating at 180elevate.com. And next is just a glimpse into one of the many philanthropies our organization supports.
It just takes one stable relationship with a caring adult to help reverse the negative impacts on a child who's experienced abuse or neglect. I'm California Surgeon General Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, and I've spent my career studying childhood trauma, toxic stress, and the profound impact on public health. Many children have been placed in the foster care system because of abuse or neglect, causing both physical and emotional pain. These adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, can also lead to lifelong health problems. But ACEs are not destiny. Studies have shown that just one supportive adult in the life of a child can reverse some of the negative impacts of ACEs. You have the power to make a difference. A court-appointed special advocate, or CASA, can help a child who has experienced abuse and neglect begin to heal from their past and build a healthier future. Find out how you can help